Welcome to Malachi's Message Toxic Mold Sex Story Series, co-hosted by the co-founders of Malachi's Message, Emily Rochelle and Elizabeth Cripe. Here we will be interviewing and hearing from people who have been through mold. We hope that this helps others feel not alone, not crazy, and that it gives them the strength, hope, and resources that they need to continue on in their journey.
Where's hair and makeup? Where's a hat?
Welcome to Malachi's Message. I'm Elizabeth Cripe, Executive Director and co-founder of Malachi's Message. And before we begin, I want to thank one of our sponsors, TMI, or Texas Mold Inspectors. They are some of the leading experts on litigation and mold in the state of Texas, so please go check them out. Today, I have the unique privilege and honor of hearing and interviewing this lovely, handsome man right here. I can say that because it's my husband. And ironically, we just saw a memory post on Facebook that we met exactly 11 years ago today. So it's kind of cool that we're doing this interview today. I think it's cool. He's just ready to talk.
11 years, you dragging me into stuff.
You're still here, so I'm going to keep dragging.
Yep, still here.
So those of you that know me, you know that we went through molds, and we just thought it would be, it's still recording. We thought it would be a very cool experience to hear from a man's perspective on their mold journey, what you went through, how you mentally processed it, where we're at today. So I guess we will start, and if you could briefly share your version of what happened when we first found mold and we started to go through mold. What did that look like?
Where?
So
because we first encountered mold in the garage apartment.
Yes.
We found mold in the AC unit there, and we didn't know anything about it. Just, okay, there's mold in it. We need to clean it out. And, bleach is your best friend. To be fair, it was a. To be fair, it was the AC unit. The inside of the AC unit was a hard, non-porous surface, so bleach did work on that particular thing. But the real nasty mold exposure wasn't until we moved into the apartment. And we thought that apartment was going to be good for us. We're going to get out of the tiny little studio apartment, bathing our kids in a Rubbermaid tub because it didn't have a full bathroom. And so 900 square feet and doors in between rooms sounded like a really good deal. I don't really remember how we figured out it was. I remember finding the mold, but I don't remember what triggered us into looking at the AC ducts. I don't remember.
So Jordan fell that day,
right.
Like the day before I'd gone to my throat had closed.
Mm-hmm.
You had surgery. You had surgery a few days before as well. And Jordan slipped at dinner on the water in the bathroom. But I remember now hearing more about mold. I remember thinking back, shocked that when we found the mold, and the same day my allergist had said it's got to be in your environment, your first response with both hands bandaged was, we've got to look in the vents. That was your first response. So was mold something that you already knew was a negative thing and could have an impact on our family? Because that was your first response. You took your flashlight and you started looking in all of the vents.
I didn't know about mold, but my background prior to building power lines was building air control systems and dust control systems and doing ducting and stuff. And so I remember you had said the doctor said it had to be somewhere that you spent the most time. And I remember thinking, well, if it's affecting you and the girls, I'm at work, 80 hours a week. I'm basically home to sleep, to eat and sleep, and then go back to work. So I'm not in that environment as much. You guys were in the house. And so just in my mind, it clicked off. It made that was the next logical progression was to find. And I can't look in walls. I couldn't tear into walls and stuff. So then the next thing for me was like, I don't really know why, but I just thought like, okay, maybe if there's stuff inside the ducts like that, I can see. So that's the timeline that's a bit fuzzy. Like I remember we found it because it was the register inside the living room. It was painted over so many times I couldn't get it off. That was the only one I couldn't get off to actually look inside. And I didn't even really know what I was looking at. Like as far as I thought there was like an acoustic insulation inside or some sort of insulation inside the ducts. I didn't realize till we actually had a legit inspection that wasn't. It was supposed to be bare metal and it was actually fuzzy mold lining everything. But that one in the living room had painted over so many times I couldn't get it off of the wall, and there was mold growing through the paint. There were spots of mold growing through the paint. I remember finding that and going, okay, that's not cool. But the thing that was prior to surgery, because TMI came out and did the inspection a couple days after surgery. And we had them come out after we had already tried to work with, I had found those spots. I remember finding the spots and like, hey, this is not cool. We found the spots growing through the paint and we're like, hey, we got to talk to our landlord, they've got to want to do something about this, right? Nobody's that heartless.
We knew nothing about mold yet.
Yeah, nobody's that heartless. I stand corrected now. So we knew about it before I went into surgery.
Because that's true. We were in the process. I had contacted our landlord multiple times. They came in and said it was just dust.
It was just dust. Don't worry about it. And then when we came back and said it wasn't mold, they came back and said that they treated it. Or they said that they treated the apartment for mold. I don't know what, to this day, I don't know what they did. I don't know what they sprayed in the ducts. I don't know, but I know when Josh and TMI came out, like it was still found in several spots. Like I remember he said he found some under the kitchen sink, but it wasn't like in great quantity. The biggest one was when he went in.
It was a girls' room, wasn't it? That's the only place that had the stacking. That had the black mold was the girls' room.
No, it was inside the ducts.
Oh,
that was the whole issue with our particular situation. That made it worse is when it's when mold's encapsulated inside of a cavity like a wall, there's not as much air transfer. There will be some from the house breathing. You will get some through the outlet covers or wherever else. Ours was such a high level of exposure to us because every time that AC kicked on, the air blows across those mold spores and they sporulate again. So we were getting a incredibly high level of, and it was in every inch of the AC ducts in there. So,
so what was your response? We hired them. They came out.
Right.
I remember that because I came back with the girls from the bakery because I couldn't be there with how we now know I have an allergy to mold. We didn't want my throat to close.
Amongst other things,
yeah. So what was your initial response? Because we showed up to Josh saying, hey, we've talked, you need to leave. So what was your initial response hearing that you need to leave and not look back?
Well, so that was the thing, right? Because again, we were at a point of a level of income or lack thereof to really just up and move.
You were an apprentice. We were on unpaid leave. I remember we had $111 in our bank account.
Yeah,
like 63.
So when I talked with Josh, it was the best option was to remove yourself from this remove yourself from the environment. That's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you have to stay there because you have no other way. So we walked through. We walked through. Josh walked through some ideas, some really kind of almost oaky engineering ways to come up with some really, really cheap air filtration that didn't get rid of the mold, but would start exchanging that air inside that little, inside that little box, so that at least the level of exposure wouldn't be as high. What I remember, the problem for me is that, prior to finding the mold, we've been through, 200 and something ER visits and doctor appointments. And that's what I remember more, is going, our girls being sick, you being sick.
In about 6 months. That was a period of
in about 6 months. So I remember being, up at night at 3 a.m. being in an ER, and a doctor looking at us and going, well, here, take some amoxicillin and go home. I think it's just a sinus infection. And remember looking at, our daughters and their health deteriorating, going, you've got to, I can't speak honestly on here, can I?
Without cussing, you can speak honestly,
well,
yes.
And I'm not speaking honestly. I can't put like an explicit content label on this. I just remember being like, you gotta be freaking kidding me. Like this is like, do something. And just, over and over and over and over, and just as a dad and as a father, like, you're supposed to take care of your kids, like you're supposed to protect them, like you're supposed to, at least in my mind, as a dad and as a father, as a man, like you're supposed to stand between, this is gonna be really hard. You're supposed to stand between the BS of life, and you might get one or two of these. You might have to go back and edit,
it's okay.
But I'm supposed to be able to stand between all this BS in life and my family and protect them. And it was getting around me left and right. There's nothing I could do about it, like just this feeling of helplessness. So standing there, hands wrapped up, and 2 days out of surgery, and we thought we knew what the problem was, but now we have like definitive evidence that this is what's making your family sick. So for me, it was different. Like, okay, do I, knowing before, ignorance is bliss.
Oh, how life would be different.
Ignorance is bliss. So to me, the question was, do I knowingly send y'all back into that space, knowing that this is what's making you sick? Do I send you back into that spot? Because if we had done that, in hindsight, it would have been, let's see, that was in when, June?
July 9th.
July 9th.
We moved in December 1st.
When I bought our first trailer in October.
Mm-hmm. So we moved back November.
The end of October, so that's where, like, okay, so it would have been July to October. That would have been that many more months of exposure. I didn't know that at the time. I just knew it was going to be a long time between. So that was where, where I was at with, I didn't know at that time, like, how long were we going to be, if I send you back in there, how long are we going to be in that spot? I know what now that I kind of figured out, I know what the last 6 months has done, but can I in good conscience send you back into that place? Or do we take our chances?
So the girls and I got on planes. We flew to stay with family out of state.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, we still didn't know how sick we were.
Nope. What
did the next, from that time frame, from July 9th through October, what did that look like for you briefly? Where were you at?
I think for me, it wasn't so much about the molds. It was just like, at that point, that wasn't really in the thought process. Like, that wasn't that really wasn't a mind, like, yeah, okay, we lost everything. So it wasn't like trying to fix this mold problem. It was just like, how the hell do we get our family back together?
So where were you? Were you staying in a hotel? Were you staying, I mean, I know, but.
I stayed on a friend's couch for I forget how long. It was several weeks. Not. It was. I think it was like a month and a half, almost 2 months. I stayed on a friend's couch. And this is where things got a little weird. Like, this is the first inkling, because one day, that friend, like, he's like, "Hey man, I think I have mold in the house." And I remember he took me over to the closet, opened the closet, and he looked up at the ceiling and could definitely see like the black gray spots growing through. I'm like, that was my first inclination. Like, holy hell! Like, how are we ever going to run from this stuff? Like, is there going to be a spot that we can get away from this stuff? I didn't know like how much that was going to come into play. So after there, I had a childhood friend that came out of the woodwork. And that's when Micah got a hold of me, and his brother Peter had an apartment down in Galveston where I was working, and if you wanted to stay there, so I did. Found several spots of mold in there. It was a super old apartment.
You stay in your truck for a little while too?
I wound up staying in my truck for a little bit. Briefly in between that, because it was a 3-hour drive, from in the evening, 3 or 4 hour drive from Galveston up to Spring or Conroe. I stayed in the apartment at one point. Like, I tried staying in there, that didn't work. Like, that was knowing the problem was there. Like, I couldn't sleep knowing that's what was happening.
I think our dog might be puking in the background. Hang on. Yeah, we're back. Our life is never dull.
Why did we get a dog?
Anyway.
Oh, he's good. He's good. Anyway, so we did that. You worked your.
And so, yeah, I went back to work, but my mind wasn't focused on mold. It was just like, okay, I've got to work. I've got to get back. I was out on medical leave. And so it really was just like this, very quickly get into like a survival mindset of like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do next, but I got to find the next thing and just do the next thing. And it was just like, it was clawing and biting and scratching and fighting your way to get to the next spot. Sadly, like, I do remember, that summer was when Hurricane Harvey hit Houston. And I remember being slightly relieved because, like, we had a place to stay.
Because you guys were being put up.
We got put up.
Worked.
And I was initially okay with that, because we stayed at Nate and Priscilla's house, and like actually had a bed and home cooked meals, and then we got put up once the city started flooding. They started spreading us out into little like islands that we could operate out of, and they put us in a hotel. And I remember like thinking, we got into the hotel, we got there like super late night. We'd been up for like 48 hours or more at that point by the time we got to the hotel. I'm just like so glad. And we got to this hotel, we're on the bottom floor, and I walk in, and I remember sitting on the edge, like it smelled musty, and now I would describe it, but then I just described it as musty. I remember sitting on, the corner of the bed closest to the door and taking my boots off. And I went to walk around the bed to like open the curtain and see what we were looking at. And halfway across the bed, my socks were wet. And then I realized, stepped back, like, what on earth? And I realized our room was flooded. There was like 1.5 inches, 2 inches of water in our room. And so it was just like, you know what? F it. Like, I'm just going to go to sleep. I don't care. I don't think I even pulled the covers back from that place. I just changed into the last pair of dry socks I had and put my boots back on. But that didn't matter. And I remember there was, at one point we were driving somewhere, and we looked out the window of the truck, and there was a neighborhood of people, and they just had, trash bags of stuff, or holding their kids above their head. Water was about chest deep. And there's this line as far as you could see, people walking, trying to get out of this neighborhood. And one of the guys in the truck said, "Man, can you imagine losing everything?" I said, "Yeah, it sucks, man." And I think that was the thing too. Like, I didn't go around like, oh man, this sucks. I didn't like go telling people like, hey, we just lost everything. I'm living out of my truck. They just, you know, handle business and go about it. And um, that was probably about the only time that like everybody kind of realized like, oh crap, you did lose everything. And so um, that was just the next thing. Like, I knew I needed to get a place. I knew I needed to work as much as possible to try to get as much income as possible so we could start to rebuild. And that was just the next logical step.
So we did that. We
Mhm.
got back together in November. We
Mhm.
bought the trailer in October. We got back together in November. About a year later, 2 years official diagnosis, we found out I had mast cell. So you went through trying to get us back together to finding out that we all had these different diagnoses. So our world quickly changed.
Well, let back up from there, because you got a diagnosis, but at the same time we went to doctors up in Dallas. We started working out in California. You started seeing um,
No names.
no names, but
No
I
names.
think that I couldn't in good conscience recommend anybody to go see that particular
Right.
doctor, especially not for the amount of money that they charge.
So we saw a doctor. It turned out not to be a great experience.
It wasn't a great experience, and it didn't really help. We eventually, but we're finding all this stuff out, and like that's something that whether it's mast cell or whether it's anything else, or even within, I talked with my brother about some chronic illnesses that he has. You just have to keep fighting. Like, you just have to, okay, you run down this hallway through this door as hard as you can, and when you find a dead end, you just like, you don't have the time to sit there and feel sorry for yourself, feel sorry for anybody else. You turn around, you got to go back down that hallway, find the next door to like find the next exit, go find the next thing, go try the next thing. Because and keeping in mind, like, it sounds cliche, but you start being grateful for, hey, I remember the first time I remember, hang on, where were we?
Okay, so we're going to, how did you process all of the changes that were happening to your family? Because there were a lot of them. How did you
That was the big thing. Like, I didn't have time to process. There was no time to process. There was 80 hours worth of work a week at work, and there was come home and do whatever you got to do. There wasn't time to process. So,
but that's an intentional choice, right? Like, there are a lot of people that would probably not do that.
Maybe I'm a little different with that, but I just think if you're going to feel sorry for yourself when you've got 3 other people that you're responsible for, like, then
Figure it out.
Yeah. Like, I didn't have the time to sit there and be like, oh, poor me. Like, no, there's stuff that's got to be done. There's things that need to be handled. There's like, okay, what's the next thing? And it didn't have, like, if I ever stopped, either we wouldn't have, like, because you had, doctor appointments that need to be paid for, because none of these damn specialists were in network for insurance. So we were paying out of pocket for that. Lo and behold, anything they prescribe, we're paying for out of pocket. That's incredibly expensive, which, we've talked about that before, that I don't feel like being healthy should be a status symbol, but that's a whole nother,
that's a
topic, whole nother barrel of garbage to unpack. But I can't change that reality, right? But I can put my head down and keep pushing and try to make, with the pieces and parts that I have right here, I can make something work there. So I didn't have time to sit there and be like, oh, how do I feel about this? Sucks. Keep moving. Maybe one day I'll have the time to sit there, the last, this has been what, 5 years now. So then probably the last 2 years, I've started to have some time to unpack a little bit about it, but it's not even been unpack. It's been more like, okay, where did I suffer and where do I need to like improve myself, or what things do I need to change, that came, what are the negatives that came out of that? Okay, now how do I take care of myself? I've talked to people who are like, oh, you got to take care of yourself in order to take care of the people. Yes. In the long term, yes, absolutely. For a short period of time, there's a lot of things that like I knew going in, like, hey, I don't know how this is going to work. I don't know if it's good for me to stay in this place or do this or that, but I don't have a lot of options. So I think one of the things that was I think I was reading Chris Kyle's book, and I want to say it's where it was, but he mentioned something in there about like something to the effect, I'm way paraphrasing out here. So something to the effect of like like an imperfect plan today is better than a perfect plan tomorrow, because you've got to move today on what you're working with. So even if it's not the best plan, or even if it's not the most ideal things, that was my mindset. Like, I've got to keep moving to make this happen, and my feelings be damned, I can figure them out later.
And you did. You worked hard. You made sure we got to the doctors we needed to get to all the appointments. We still fly to California when we need to see the specialists we see for like everything now.
Well, and so that's the other thing too. Like I've had people that have asked me, like, why don't, that's amazing you did that. It's not really amazing. If you're a dad, you're a father, you're a husband, you're like, that's part of just being a man. Like, that's in my mind. Maybe I'm old fashioned, maybe I'm whatever, but like that's what you signed up for. If you signed up, whether it was intentional or oops, when you signed up to be a father, that's what you signed up to do. When you signed up to be a husband, that's what you signed up to do. You signed up to take care of your little clan, and that would mean that you might have to basically take the brunt of the blows in order to shield them and keep them going. It's like, I mean, I look at it like, how that's amazing you did that. What was I supposed to do? Lay down and die? Let you guys not go to a doctor? No, we can't go to a doctor. Figure it out. Yeah, I guess if your throat closes, your throat closes. Figure, like, when you're in that spot, you figure it out, and you do whatever is necessary to take care of your family. So I don't think that's anything extraordinary. I think it seems odd because we live in a society that we put so much emphasis on comfort, and dealing with mold will strip that away in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
nothing is comfortable. That's our joke, right? You swore you would never live in a trailer. I swore I would never be organic, grass-fed, hippie, almond milk BS, and
now we live in a trailer.
Now we live in a trailer,
and that's
our diet. So
yes.
Okay, laugh about it. That's the biggest thing. Find the things you can laugh about. Sweat the small stuff, because that's the stuff you can control. The big stuff, it sucks. It happened. Deal with it. Like, move on. And not even that sounds callous, but like, that's like, move on to the next thing. Figure out, pivot, keep moving, keep your legs pumping, keep your arms clawing at what that next thing is, both figuratively and literally. And that's all you can do in that. That's the best thing in my mind that you can do at that point.
Okay, so 2 more questions for you. how do you think it's impacted our marriage, going through molds and the various diagnoses, and how our life has drastically kind of changed in the last 5 years? How has that impacted our marriage?
Overall, I think it's made it better. But I think there's two important things about it. I think very strongly, um, very strongly, I think we both, prior to any of this, years before prior to any of this, we subscribe to the idea that failure is not an option. And that's probably something that for me,
for our marriage, we know that failure is going to come in life, and you
well,
take it and
even
handle
even
it.
that to a certain extent, like, yeah, there failure, but I define failure as like when you stop trying.
Yeah.
There's going to be complications. Nothing's going to be perfect. But failure is when you absolutely hit that wall and you're just like, F it, I'm not doing this anymore. Or I refuse to do it anymore. I just won't. Like, so for me, that was something that had already been instilled in myself. Like, failure is not an option. I don't have a choice to not provide for my family. That's not even an option on the table. Like, I'm just done with this. I can't take anymore. That's not even a debatable point. Like, that's not something that is okay. So I know we went into that with our marriage, and this was not the first hard thing we'd ever done. It was not the first hard thing that I've ever walked through. So it was just like, screw it. Why not? Like, so I think in the long term, it's made it better. It's one of those things that, something that you earn and something that you fight for. When you get to claim hold of it, it's much more appreciated than something that is just given or something that comes easy. I think in the short term, yes, there have been a lot of hard things that I think it's the struggling to not check out, struggling to keep fighting, like, this is okay, like that part has been there. Yeah, there were times and seasons of struggle that where it was like, man, it would just be easier to quit and not do this anymore. But again, that's not an option. So I mean, I think that was part of it for me too, was looking at, like, for being completely honest, yeah, there was times where, like, man, what would happen if I just quit? What would happen if I just stopped doing this? And I think about, like, my own questions for, some of the questions that I've had for my own parents or stuff in some of their failures as I've grown up, and the questions I've asked them, I start thinking about, okay, what questions would my kids ask me?
Yeah.
Daddy, why did you leave us? Shit, I got nothing other than Dad just quit. Like, there's not an honest answer to that. So I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. So, just keep going. It sounds stupidly simple, and it is, but it's also the hardest thing, like, to just keep going.
Well, my next question was going to be, what would you tell other men that are going through it, that are struggling? But I feel like you've kind of
okay, but that's a different
already.
No, but that's a different question. That's a different question entirely. For men, that's an entirely different question, because traditionally, how do I put it? And this is, some of the younger men that I work with are probably more prone to sharing their feelings and struggles and everything, and that's great. But I think more type A, more traditional mindset men are not going to be as readily to be like, hey, I'm really struggling with XYZ. And I think so there's a mindset of like, sharing it is one thing, dwelling in it is another. And so share it, find some sort of support group, or if you've got a good buddy, like, man, can we go grab grab a drink and I just need somebody to talk to and talk through it. I think that is healthy. And I think that's where, the last 2 years I've realized for myself, like, I need to start working on this stuff. We got to a point where we were health-wise on a good track. Okay, now I need to start taking care of myself. In order to keep succeeding, I need to take care of myself so I can keep taking care of you guys. And so that's where
so you'll go see the doctor
when we've got time. Yeah, sure. Right on it. There's other ways to take care of myself, and there is, like, honestly, mental health. If you've got a decent church men's group or something, your
Iron Council.
I found that huge. Through Order of Man and in the Iron Council and meeting with guys over Zoom even. I think I've met 2 of the 15 guys in real life over the last 2 years, but just still phone calls. If you find somebody else, I think that's one of the beautiful things about what y'all are doing. It's one thing just to have somebody that tells you, oh yeah, I know somebody that dealt with mold. Cool. It's another thing to talk with another husband that's going, I'm losing my mind, or I'm just, the surface level stuff, and go, I'm having a hard week. And we had a guy that I sensed that, so I just like, man, this is where I'm at. And I laid it out, and he was like, that me laying that out there, this is where I'm struggling. This is where I feel like I'm losing my mind. This is where I'm just like, I wake up and some days I'm like, I don't know how much longer I can take this. Sharing that to a certain extent opened up where, like, he felt like, okay, so I'm not the only one that feels this way.
I mean, we're having the Morbid Grill this afternoon.
Yeah. But getting in contact, and so I think that's a different thing. At the time, I didn't know anybody else. I didn't know anybody else that dealt with this stuff, or so it's hard to fathom. That being said, with my job, again, I take that, okay, what can I take out of that and use? I worked several hurricanes and several fires several hurricanes on the East Coast, several fires on the West Coast. And I take that and go, man, with what I'm doing and to start rebuilding community, what would that mean to me if somebody stepped in and started rebuilding something in my life to just give me a little bit of hope?
Would have been huge for us.
Right. So that's where I take my experiences, and how can I turn that around? This is again, maybe a different mindset, but how do I take what's happened to me, and how do I take that and use it to sharpen and push who I am in other areas of life?
Excuse me.
So you paused me right mid thought.
I did pause you. We thought we heard our children screaming, so we had to quickly go check on them.
They were screaming. They just weren't.
They weren't in trouble. They were having fun. No, you were talking about basically finding a safe space to be able to mentally process.
Yeah. And so that's where, it was, I think that's been a variety of things.
And is it important that it's somebody that is not your spouse? Because you're walking through, I was the one in our family that went through the changes.
Don't use your spouse.
We talk a lot, but
that's not where I can't. unless you're brain dead, go ahead and tell your wife that all of her health problems are just really bringing you down and stressing you out. Let me know how that works out for you.
Especially when stress is a trigger for them.
Yeah. I mean, if you just want to pull the pin on the grenade of your existence, go ahead and do that. I don't personally recommend it, but no. And so it doesn't have to be.
And it's not, for lack of a better term, but it's not a bitch fest. It's
No.
you processing it. There's a difference there that I
Yeah.
think men need to understand.
Yeah.
Based on our previous conversation.
Well, yeah. And so there's a difference between complaining. Complaining doesn't get you anywhere.
And it's not helpful, right? It doesn't mentally
No,
or
there's no
physiologically help you.
No, there's no constructive, there's no constructive body chemistry to it. Yeah. There's no there's not, and I know we're really big on like or culture is that I'm just venting. Okay, great. What does that get you? If this is so horrible and so hard and so terrible, just sitting in it doesn't make a difference. So there's a difference between going and sometimes it wasn't even the idea of like going, when we were working out on the West Coast, there was a couple of guys that had just started talking with them. They're like, and completely unrelated to what we were doing, we're like, hey, come over and we're gonna have some beers, and the one guy built a sauna in his backyard. Mm-hmm. And I found out really quickly, sauna and ice bath was a really great way to detox your body. Like that was, yes. So that was a benefit. Even if we didn't talk about anything else, emotionally or mentally about anything about that night, being able to take a small moment to step out of that situation, out of your own situation, and get a break, get a breather. Do something, whether it's, if you're by yourself, you don't have a group of guys, go fishing by yourself. Go do something where you can shut off and step away from everything for a little bit. Take a deep breath, shrug your shoulders a little bit, and then when you're done with that, okay, this is great. I'm ready to step back into that. And so that's been
well, we've tried to make sure it's healthy, right? Make sure it's not you're not choosing to escape to something that's going to be a detriment to your marriage in the long haul. So right. Like you said, fishing, working out, talking with guys, doing something. Right.
If you're just drinking, that's probably not going to end well. That's going to add a couple of different other issues. If you're self-medicating, if you're, so it's got to be constructive in a way that's going to, if your idea is to go out and binge drink with a couple of buddies at a football game, well, guess what? You're gonna be hungover the next morning. You're not gonna be worth a damn to deal with whatever's coming your way, and it's gonna be that much harder to start doing. Don't get me wrong. There's nights and times where it's great to cut loose and have a few, and sometimes there is some benefit to it. But if that's your regular go-to, and there's more mornings than not where your ability to get up and seize the day is inhibited, then that's not a beneficial thing.
No, and we've talked about that too. Like, hey, I'm in the middle of a flare-up. I need to make sure that you are fully sober because there's a chance I'm going to use.
Well, it's not even that. So like my measuring stick on that was like, if I want to have a craft beer or something, that's fine. Mm-hmm. If I realize for myself, if I get off the network and I'm like, and again, this is being honest with yourself. I can't lay out a strategy to do with that, but it was being honest with myself. If I sit there and go, get off work, and like, I need a beer. Wait, no, I don't. There's a difference between I'd like one and I need one. Yeah. And that was for me where I started to, okay, I don't need that. That's not what I need.
But you do need a break. Like
I might need a break.
Yes.
I might need to stand back and take a deep breath. And so whether that was, putting the kids to bed and going outside and just sitting for a minute.
Sitting in the truck. We made sure I let you.
Yeah.
You need to sit in the truck
and
before you came inside.
And that was different too. Coming home through traffic, I might need to sit in the truck and again, but it's being able to be constructive and set those boundaries.
Yeah.
So, okay, 30 minutes, I just need to veg out on some stupid YouTube video or something. And okay, that 30 minutes is up. All right, let's do this. Let's get it. That's how I've been dealing with that more. And then setting measurable goals. Because if you're not tracking in any way what you're going through and what you're accomplishing, then it's going to seem like it's never ending cycle. And you and I have talked about that. Like we record some of the things that we have a written record of the things that we like. We didn't know how we were going to get a trailer. This is how we got it. And this thing happened. And this thing happened.
Yeah.
And this thing happened. Or this person came out of the woodwork and offered some sort of assistance. Those people coming out of the woodwork will help birth the idea of Malachi's message. Man, if somebody would have done that.
Okay, so it's still recording. We're good. Apparently, thanks for talking too long.
Technology is great. Yeah, well, we probably are. But, so do something that you can measure. And so at the end of the day, when you look back, you can go, okay, I was here and now I'm here.
Even if it's small. Like,
even if it's small. And you celebrate the small wins. Hey, as silly as it sounds, I remember the first time we celebrated going 30 days without going to the ER.
That was a big deal. I remember that too.
We went 30 days without going to the ER. And the next time we did go to the ER, you were down. You're like, man, this sucks. We're never gonna. Hey,
it was a year almost that time. It was the first time in a year.
We went 30 days. Like, that's a big deal. We can do 30 days again. If we make it 60 days the next time without winding up in the ER, like, that's a big deal. And so keeping track of those things so you can measure them and judge and go, okay, it is getting better.
Yeah.
We are in a better place now than we were 5 years ago. Are we where we want to be? Nope. Not yet.
But we're a lot closer.
But we're getting closer all the time and keep making those goals and assessing. And so that's, those are the things that I know that I've done. I don't always get it right. Ask my wife. Like, saying, but
you're still around. I keep you around.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, but I think that's anything for husbands and men. Like, this is a real thing, because that's the other thing too. You're like, everybody else, like, man, I don't know how many people like, really, it messes her up that bad. Like, you can't go do this. You can't. Yeah, it really does. So it is a real thing. It really does affect people that badly. But you're not alone. You're not the only ones going through this. You're not the only ones. There's not. You're not alone in that fight, and you're not alone in dealing with this stuff. And so that's the other thing I think to keep in mind, and then to keep at it, keep chipping away. It's not going to be an overnight thing. I know everything that we do in this culture is so centered around, Amazon Prime delivers next day, everything's microwavable, you need to get your food in so much time. But this is one of those things, and mold and dealing with it and the after effects of it is one of those things that is not a quick process.
Yeah.
There is no magic pill. There is no magic shot. There is no magic anything. It's just going to take time and a lot of work. Will it ever be like it was before? Maybe, maybe not. We've met some people that don't have these massive underlying autoimmune conditions that are brought out of it, and good for them. Genuinely good for them. Like, not sarcastic. Oh, good for them. Genuinely, that's great. But it might not. And so I think Like, that's, you just have to keep plugging away at it. It's been 5 years. Realistically, if you count the time where we actually figured out what the hell we're doing, it's been a lot shorter than that.
Yeah.
So to keep that in mind too.
But we had to find the balance. I'm going to end with this too, though. We had to find the balance where, because I think it was harder on you. I was trying to accept what was going on to me, and you were stepping in still as my spouse, as my friend, but also like as my coach when I would hit my walls of denial.
Because I'd be telling you, do you want to actually see your kids grow up, or do you want me, like, I've refused to accept you to just lay down and not do this stuff.
But that was genuinely the reality too.
But that was genuinely the reality. Like
it,
you're hurting your body every time this happens. So I love you. I want you to do well. I want you to succeed. But the pity party's got to stop. And if you actually want to do these things and you want to get better, then you have to do the little daily things. The 1% changes, the 1% diet changes, the taking the vitamins and supplements every single day, the looking at ingredients. And it gets old. It sucks. Nobody wants to go to the store. Like, even you're in the gluten-free section and it should be safe, right? No, you still got to flip over because some company decided it's going to be gluten-free.
But not celiac friendly.
But not celiac friendly, because we're just this happy schmishmortion of stuff.
How do you schmishmortion?
It's 10 extra points if you know what movie that's from. Not telling you how to live your life. But no, like, it sucks. Nobody wants to sit there. Like, I'm that guy in the aisle, and religiously, I can still eat these things, but because I give a damn about my family, like, I'm still going to sit there and take everything off the shelf at the grocery store and roll it over and look at every single ingredient on that list. And trust me, how many times have I called you because I can't remember all the things that are on the list of things that we can't have?
Yeah.
Hey, can you have this again? Well, I can have it in small doses. And then being the food czar, like, nope.
I don't say that anymore. We've gotten a lot better. We've gotten past that.
I know. No. I'm just saying that was my role.
Yes, that was for a while.
Like, I had to take that up and say, nope.
You were very much the gatekeeper for our family.
A little bit. No, we're not playing this game of like, oh, I can have a little bit. It'll just give a little reaction. No, we're going for no reactions. We're going for no doctor visits other than maintenance. That's what we're trying to get through. So.
And we're there now.
We're there now. So, it takes but then also having the grace to give yourself to remind that, like, hey, yeah, you had a major reaction. You were down and out for 2 whole days. It's going to take your body 7 days, at least 7 to 14 days to fully recoup. You need to rest. You need to adjust your schedule to allow your body to rest. And reminding you to give yourself the grace to do those things, because life is not the same. Yeah. Last thing, and really honestly, last thing, don't compare. Do not try to compare your life to somebody else's, whether it's another person that's dealt with mold, whether it's another person that doesn't deal with mold and wishing you had that life of doing whatever and being carefree. Like, that comparison game, no matter what you're doing in life, is not going to serve you well. You're always going to come up short. And the other thing, you're not getting a full picture. There might be stuff, we've dealt with this with people where, man, it must be nice to have their life, and you find out they're dealing with a bunch of other stuff underneath the surface. Their life isn't all that great. So yeah, they can eat whatever foods they want, but they're dealing with other problems, and like, okay, I'd rather deal with a limited diet and not deal with the other problems.
Still like me.
Yeah. Most days. I'm
glad today's one of those days.
Yeah.
If we're done.
Laugh, have a good time.
We
all
laugh.
good. So, are there any sponsors you got to remember people to go check out?
Today
Who's our sponsor?
Texas Mold Inspectors is a sponsor.
Texas Mold Inspectors is our sponsor?
Yeah, they're the sponsor for this video, yes.
So, check out Texas Mold Inspectors. If you think your house has mold, If you think your apartment has mold, if you think whatever you're in has mold, or you think there might be an issue, call Texas Mold Inspectors. They're a great sponsor. We love to kind of rep them. Give them a
They're
call.
licensed.
They are licensed.
They now work out of the state of Texas as well.
In very limited markets, but give them a call.
Yes.
If you want to know more about it, give them a call.
They do inspections, not remediation.
Give them a call. They will fill you in on the information and get you set up.
People get confused with that.
Yeah. If you find another inspection company that's doing remediations,
That's a different topic.
walk away.
Yeah, that's a different topic. All right, that is it. Thank you. Thank you for being willfully dragged into this.
Willfully dragged into this, being a board member, being a supportive husband,
Dad,
you
let us get a fur child.
cheerleader, coach.
You bought me my dream truck. You're good, Tess.
I try.
All right.